Let me describe a household, and I want you to be honest with yourself about whether this feels familiar. Two adults, both educated, both employed full-time, no shortcuts, no obvious bad decisions. Together, they earn more than most households in the country. On paper, this is the version of life that's supposed to work. From the outside, everything looks fine, even successful. They pay their bills, they show up, they're doing what responsible adults are told to do. But on the inside, something feels off. Money comes in and immediately leaves. Not on luxury, not on excess, just on life. Rent or mortgage, utilities, food, insurance, childcare, transportation. Savings grow slowly, if at all. And every unexpected expense feels heavier than it should. A car repair, a medical bill, a school cost that wasn't planned for. They don't feel reckless. They don't feel irresponsible. They're not living beyond their means. They feel tired. Not just physically, financially exhausted. Like they're running on a treadmill that never slows down. And the most confusing part is this. They did what they were told would work. They got the education, they got the jobs, they followed the rules. So why does it still feel fragile? Why does stability feel temporary instead of solid? That question, unanswered, is what keeps them awake at night. My name is Connor. I spend my time thinking about money and why people who seem to be doing everything right still feel financially stressed. If you've ever wondered how two full-time incomes can somehow feel tighter than one, or why households earning more than ever are still living paycheck to paycheck, this video is for you. Today, we're talking about the two-income trap and why adding more money doesn't always buy more freedom. If that sounds familiar, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. For most of modern history, we were sold a very simple promise. More income equals more security. And on paper, that logic makes sense. If one income can support a household, then two incomes should do more than support it. They should create margin. They should buy time, flexibility, and peace of mind. Savings should grow faster. Emergencies should feel manageable. Choices should feel less constrained. But that promise rests on one fragile assumption, that the rest of the system stays still while income rises. It didn't. Instead, something quieter happened. As second incomes became normal, the economy didn't respond by making life easier. It recalibrated. Housing prices adjusted upward. Childcare expanded to absorb both incomes. Debt products multiplied to stretch budgets just far enough to cope. The extra income didn't disappear. It was captured. Not through one dramatic shift, but through a slow repricing of normal. And once that happened, two incomes stopped being an advantage. They became the entry fee. Go back a few generations. Most middle-class households ran on one primary income. That didn't mean life was easy, but it did mean something important existed: unused capacity. If the main earner lost a job or got sick, another adult could step into the workforce. That second income wasn't required. It was reserved. Today, we've flipped that model completely. Both incomes are now fully committed before they even arrive. And once that happens, the household loses something more valuable than money. It loses margin. This dynamic was famously described by Elizabeth Warren long before her political career, after studying thousands of bankruptcy cases. The conclusion was uncomfortable. Two-income households were not more stable. They were more exposed. Here's the part that's hard to accept. Most families didn't use the second income to build wealth. They used it to qualify. Qualify for a larger mortgage. Qualify for a better neighborhood. Qualify for schools that cost more to access. In other words, the second income wasn't treated as a buffer. It became a key that unlocked higher fixed costs. That paycheck never had time to become savings. It was already spoken for. And once your fixed expenses are built around two incomes, the household stops being flexible. One income doesn't mean tight. It means failure. At that point, you're no longer choosing to work twice as hard. You're required to. That's when stress quietly replaces security, not because you did anything wrong, but because the system was designed to absorb every dollar you added. Let's slow this down. A second income looks large on paper, but in practice, it gets eaten from every direction. Taxes hit it at higher marginal rates. Childcare becomes mandatory. Transportation costs multiply. Time disappears, and convenience spending fills the gap. What's left is often far less than people expect, sometimes shockingly small. And yet, decisions are still made based on the gross number. That's the trap. You don't feel poor enough to be cautious, but you're not liquid enough to be safe. But here's the mistake most households make. They don't plan around what's left. They plan around the gross number. That's the trap. You don't feel poor enough to slow down, but you're not liquid enough to absorb a shock. And that's how a household can look strong on paper, while quietly living on a knife's edge. This is where the real damage happens. Because when you're earning a good income and still feel constantly stressed, the most natural conclusion is that the problem must be you. You start replaying the same thoughts. Maybe you're bad with money. Maybe you lack discipline. Maybe you should be saving more, spending less, trying harder. Maybe you should feel grateful instead of anxious. And because everyone around you looks like they're managing just fine, the self-blame deepens. But the truth is both simpler and more uncomfortable. You're not failing. You're operating inside a system that quietly removed margin and replaced it with motion. A system where income rises, but safety doesn't. Where effort increases, but relief never arrives. So you keep moving. You keep earning, you keep optimizing. Not because you're building wealth, but because standing still isn't allowed. And when survival requires constant momentum, stress stops feeling like a warning and starts feeling normal.
There is another way to structure a household, but it's rarely celebrated and almost never marketed because it runs directly against social pressure. Some families make a quiet, deliberate choice to build their entire financial life around one income, not because they lack ambition, not because they can't earn more, but because they understand something most people don't. Margin is more valuable than appearances. Housing is sized to what one paycheck can safely carry, not the maximum a bank will approve. Transportation stays simple, reliable, and unremarkable. Fixed costs are kept intentionally low, not accidentally high. The goal isn't minimalism, it's resilience. In this structure, the second income isn't required to survive. It becomes optional. An optional income changes everything. It can be saved instead of spent, paused instead of panicked over, used as leverage instead of a lifeline. When income is optional, flexibility returns. Savings stop feeling like a fantasy. Emergencies lose their power to derail everything. Time opens up. And for the first time in a long while, decisions are made from stability, not pressure. That's the part most people are never told. Because stability doesn't sell upgrades, but it does buy back control. Real wealth isn't a big income. It's resilience. It's the ability to absorb a shock without everything breaking at once. Previous generations didn't have more money. They had systems with slack. Today, many households earn more than ever and live closer to the edge, not because they failed, but because the rules changed quietly. And the moment you see that clearly, you get to decide something important, whether you keep optimizing for appearances or start designing for freedom.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If this video made sense or helped you think differently about money, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.